Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be doing a little bit of book hunting in Cornwall, and not a million miles from where I live is the town of Liskeard, and there was a game shop which I came across. So I went down specifically for a bookshop, but when I got there he wasn't quite open, and I just thought I'd have a little look around the shop, around the town rather, and I saw this shop which was like retro games. I thought, wow, definitely going to have a little look in here because there was old games. As you can see, there was a few comics there. And yeah, this is sort of stuff I'm interested in, so I wasn't going to not go in. And it was really, really well presented, I thought. I had a little chat with the owner called John, and he's been doing it quite a long time, I think 15, 17 years, something like that. And he's got built up quite a local clientele. And as you can see, this it's really, really well presented. It's well lit, well merchandised. I thought the shop was absolutely excellent, in all honesty. And he told me he had some great stuff brought in, from the locals, big boxes. I think he said he had a big collection of Dreamcast fairly recently, and a big Nintendo 64 collection, a lot of which was sealed. But see there, he does Blu-rays. In the shop, he had stuff going back as far as the Master System. So you see there on the left, we've got Mega Drive and below that Master System, loads of PlayStation 1 games. I mean, really quite the comprehensive stock. Really much, much better than you would averagely see. And as you can see, very well lit, merchandised, everything was priced. I think he did a really, really good job there. Walls and walls of Funko Pop, as you would expect. But yeah, really nice indeed. So I'm glad I popped in and saw that. But yeah, Liskeard is about half an hour from Plymouth if you're looking to drive. And I went down specifically to look at the one bookshop. And then we were going on, I had my wife with me, then we're going on to Lanhydrock, which is the National Trust House, which also has a bookshop. So there's a bit of book content to check out, but you never can tell what you're going to come across on these sorts of trips. So I just popped in and, well, there you go. So you may well make Liskeard a little stop if you're heading into Cornwall. Here's the last little batch now. So this is Xbox 360 and original Xbox games through to the more modern Xbox, PlayStation 2, some Nintendo DS, PlayStation 3. Plenty there. Nintendo Wii. And great stuff in there. Really, really good. And prices seem fairly reasonable. So yeah, that was John Bond. The little shop of DVDs and games with a few comics, as we saw. This was early on a Saturday morning. This was before 10 o'clock. A little bit of Lego there. So the place was quite quiet. The town was quite quiet. I suspect it would have been a bit busier. Now this was right opposite the bookshop. This is Bargain Box in Liskeard. So the bookshop was still shut. But I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And at first glance, you think, well, this is just like a charity shop. But in actual fact, it's not. Although it is sort of done for charity, it relies on donations. But it's absolutely full of like collectible bits and pieces, really. Definitely not overpriced. It has a food cupboard, which we'll see in a minute. So for people who are perhaps struggling that week, just with a few household essentials, you put a fiver in, you can help yourself. And even if you can't afford it, you are able to go along and just get a few essentials last minute. It's quite a common thing you see around some workplaces these days while people are struggling. And I like the way that they've done this as well. So the cabinets are full of items, and it's everything in this cabinet like a fiver. What a great way of doing it. Yeah, and to me, I mean, this sort of stuff, it's not my area of expertise at all. But at the same time, I think it's a really good way of doing it. And I think if you're into like little collectibles and stuff, you would find something in this shop. So although there isn't a single book in here, it's not book related at all. It's just a shop full of sort of interesting curiosities and some collectibles as well. And since it's literally opposite the bookshop, you may want to think, oh, I remember that one, I might just go in. If you are just coming down to look at the second-hand shop. I mean, these die casts here, a few slightly dearer ones for the bigger sets there, but the small ones, just a couple of quid each. I mean, it's pretty good. Pretty good pricing, I think. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. It's just not your typical sort of charity shop, is it? But the stuff in it is sort of good quality. Once again, really well merchandised, nicely lit, and I don't think expensive at all. Those Wade Whimsies seemed cheap at £1 each. I know they weren't boxed, but that seemed cheap. And under the table, they've got some really nice DVDs at 25p each. Look at that. And lots of good stuff in there as well. But it's DVD. What can you do? But yeah, quite an interesting shop. Definitely worth popping in, I would say. If you're visiting the bookshop, do pop in, because you never know what you might find in there. They seem to have a pretty good idea of what's what. Yes, definitely not your average charity shop, that's for sure. And here we are then. So Jack Ryder Books. This is the bookshop I wanted to visit. It's on the Liskeard High Street, as it were. Now, there wasn't a great deal in the window. I think they possibly suffer from sun coming right in, which would fade the books, of course, so they have to be careful. Been around a long time, yeah, in Pike Street. That's sort of the main street. It was listed in the sort of the Books of the Southwest booklet, which is always worth picking up. And once again, a very packed bookshop, as we're sort of used to seeing, and books of all sorts, really. So when I got there, sort of the contemporary modern stuff, he popped out in crates on the street. So that stuff came straight out. This was sort of the only sort of vintage paperback bits that I really saw in there. He had a few other bits dotted around. This was his Folio Society books. And the prices, were excellent. I thought some Buildings of England there. They, nothing was too expensive. A lot of the hardbacks were like, 4 to 5 quid. But he did have some collectible stuff as well, which, we will see a few bits and pieces, which I thought perhaps was a bit overpriced for the condition that it was in. It was sort of like, this would be the price if it was, fine. It's a set-in wrapper of Churchill's Second World War. I must have seen 3 sets of it in there. So that was Jack there. We just briefly saw. The science fiction was sectioned out. And he did mention to me, and we'll have a closer look through them in a minute, he'd had a run of the British Science Fiction Book Club come in, and you can see some on the shelf there. He had about 100 come in, and he said someone came in and bought like a bag load. I think he priced them all at like a £5 a pop, and he thought, I probably did them too cheap. I don't know which ones went, because I wasn't there, but I do go through some of the ones that I fancied. Unfortunately, I didn't have an up-to-date list, which is most unlike me, on me, so I had to just sort of do it from memory, but there you go. So he does list online, apparently. So he has got some of his better stuff online, more sort of collectible titles. But I think he's a dealer who's less fussy about condition, and he's there with sort of content, really. I didn't see much in the way of books being bagged or have dust wrappers or any sort of protection on them at all. It was very much books on the shelf. I think he gets donated loads as well. In fact, when I was waiting there was a whole bag of books outside, which someone had just left on the doorstep to go into stock. It's that travel section here. And he did have just general fiction first editions, A to Z by author. Little dog there, you see, little inhabitant of the shop. Yeah, little nothing mega ancient in there. I wouldn't have thought, nothing much pre-1950 in the way of first editions. But there were some more recent stuff. There were some collectible books there, that's for certain. But a couple of authors I was interested in. Yeah, some nice stuff there. Had some Ian Banks. As you can see, there was a Wasp Factory just sat on the shelf. Banks's first book. That one was priced at £85. You also had Banksy's second book there, which was £25. And I believe he would have given some discount. He gave me some discount on the books that I bought. But I think he probably would have given a little bit of discount if you'd sort of bought something substantial. Quite a big run of Pratchett there, including a copy of Equal Rights, which is like one of his very, very early books. In first edition. A bookcase with Woodhouse in, PG Woodhouse, and some classics. Yeah, there is Equal Rights, 300 on that one. That one actually did warrant a bag. Yeah, quite a few early ones there as well. If you collected Pratchett, you could have got quite a few. And there is absolute classic book, The Wasp Factory. As I said, it was about 85 on that one, which, you know, is about right. Now, these are interesting. So these are Grafton Spear, rather, Colin Wilson's, all signed. They're rebound paperbacks, 25 each on those. I don't know who Graham was. That one was an unsigned one. Quite unusual. I think that was a Panther, that Colin Wilson. And then have a little look at some of the science fiction book clubs. Unfortunately, they were right at the bottom of a shelf, and it was a little bit tight in there. So I was struggling to film properly. I would have liked to have gone through the whole lot, in all honesty. But I didn't get a chance. So that, like the Kingsley Amis, for example, he had 15 on that. I don't know whether he would have allowed it to go for a little bit less. But, you know, what can you do? What can you do? But it's nice to see them all the same. Now, he's actually got 3 rooms. That's the main room where he's got his desk in and what we've sort of just had a look at. This is the second room. And Jack said that he started dealing in books. He'd had a history. His main career was in aerospace as an engineer. And when he sort of retired, he had a big collection of military history. And he thought, well, I'll open a bookshop and sell it. And he said, well, that didn't quite go to plan because it was so niche. He had to start doing regular books as well. So this bit here, there's an awful lot of military history because that is his specialty, really. But he does do, well, as you saw in the last room, lots of general stock as well. A little run of observers there. Once again, there was probably a couple of Anthony Beevers here that I needed, but I couldn't remember which ones. Yet another set of the Second World War by Churchill. And we see a third set later on, which have not got wrappers in. I didn't see any other Churchill books I didn't already have, sadly. But plenty here to see. If military history is your thing, there would have been something there, I'm certain of that. Then sort of out the back, again, it's sort of almost like an overflow, really. Yeah, sort of bits and pieces, a bit of history and what have you. But yeah, quite a busy shop, and one I shall definitely go back to if I'm ever passing Liskeard. That's for certain. So worth popping on your map. So that's Liskeard, and apparently there are a couple of other bookshops in town, not in the same sort of field, but might be worth stopping by. Now the second part really was a trip to Lanhydrock, and this is a National Trust house, which does actually have a bookshop in, if you can believe it. And yes, part of the National Trust now. It's in Cornwall. It's about, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes from Liskeard. It was an absolutely blindingly beautiful day, and the wife and I were desperate to get out after having a couple of very busy weeks to do just get some fresh air. So this is the walk down towards the house, and you got some the cows there pulling off the trees. Well, they like, eh? And then you head down towards the actual house and the grounds. It's got the gardens. You go through the little entry gate there, and well, the gardens are absolutely stunning. As you can see, they're really, really well maintained. And you sort of lead up to the house, and this was the stable area, which included, there we are, a second-hand bookshop. This is not unusual with National Trust. Saltram House, near where I live, has got a bookshop in where I've actually had some really good finds. Sadly, this one, and I had high hopes that I might find something, was really more akin to charity shop sort of fodder. The sort of books you would find in charity shops. I've had mixed success with them, I have to say, in National Trust bookshops, and this one sadly was not as good as some, let's put it that way, and consequently I did not find anything to buy here this time round, which in a way was a blessing, because I would have had to have carried it around the house. But since I was there was no way I was not going to have a look in the bookshop, absolutely not. And you may spot something, but not sure. Evidently they just rely on stuff that gets donated to them, as you would imagine, as a lot of these sort of places do. But obviously this is just a snapshot. For all we know, there's a huge collection just waiting to be donated and sorted out, coming next week. So if you're a book collector, you have to check these things day in, day out, every time you get the opportunity, just in case they've had that new collection come in full of stuff that you're after. But yeah, sadly, nothing this time round, so it wasn't the end of the world, but definitely it was worth a look just in case. But as you can see, nothing really vintage, and I think that's probably down to the person who's curating it. Anything that was old or vintage has probably just been binned, and they've stuck to more modern books, which is such a shame, because I think it's a false economy. If you've got nice condition vintage, doesn't matter what it is, you can sell it. But it very, very much comes down to the person who looks after it, and in this case, it's probably volunteers, and unless they know, well, you're at their mercy, really. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, a few little more collectible books there. Nothing of interest at all. I promise you that. And there we are. So we'll have a quick look around the house. I know it's not really my sort of thing. However, because it's an old house, they do have lots of really interesting antiquarian books, and I filmed absolutely every bit of book content that there was on display, as well as interesting cabinets and that. The actual tour around the house is split into three. This is the first bit where we have a look around the kitchens, and these are this is all original. This was a working house. opened up and built in the 1700s. Stopped being used as a house per se just before the Second World War. But up until that point, it was, there was the family living here. And it's really interesting. It's like a little snapshot in time, very Victorian, as you can see. I thought the false foods and that were really convincing, really convincing. But yeah, a little snapshot. It's a bit like, I suppose Downton Abbey. That would give you sort of an idea of what it would have been like. You've seen what the grounds are like. They've got their own graveyard. They've got their own church attached to it. 100 acres of land. I mean, it really is it was quite the estate, the Lanhydrock estate. And it's only right that something like this is now in the hands of the National Trust. But yeah, the first bit is just looking at the kitchen and all the scullery and all the bits connected to it, really. And I like to look at these little cabinets full of all sorts of stuff there. It's brilliant. The bedpans. And now we move on to the Victorian house proper. So it's sort of broken up, a bit like these things tend to be, where you go around the house and you look at the history of the paintings, the furniture, the rooms where people lived, and usually they're themed. This is like the kids' room where they would dress up and play. Little piano there. Some of their costumes. Very posh to have a bath like that back then. I find these sorts of medicine cabinets absolutely fascinating. They really are. Yeah, I always find that stuff very interesting to look at. And you've got the sort of different bedrooms for the different people in the house. The husbands, the wives, the children. Virtually all the books were behind glass cabinets, so you couldn't actually go in and touch them and look at them or anything like that. Which is to be expected. There was no, because it's antiquarian. A lot of the authors are not people you would recognise, but you do see some very, very old books. Some of the kids' bits and pieces are really nice as well. So the sort of stuff that you would expect, card games, big doll's house there, rocking horse, that sort of stuff. Checkers, dominoes, chess. Those were like metal stand-up soldiers. Not quite sure the manufacturer of those. The Sham 8, I think that said. That was sort of that was a room designed for learning, apparently. That little room there. Quite a nice arc set there. The animals going in 2 by 2, and you work your way along. This is sort of an entertainment room. You can take photos and what have you. The various offices. I think this is one of the dressing rooms. And looking out the window there, back out into the grounds. I said there were books virtually in every room. The overall lighting was not great. There's no electric lighting in there, of course. Some of it has been strategically set up where it would be dangerous not to have some lighting. But generally speaking, the place was not well lit, the inside of the house. And I've done my best to try and balance the light as best as possible, really. But it's not easy. But an awful lot to look at. Yeah. Yeah, the estate office. Some sort of legal books and stuff, by the look of it. Yeah, quite an interesting house, that's for certain. This was like the games room. There's a covered billiard table there. Pictures of the cricket team and your cues and what have you. This is dedicated to one of the sons who lost his life in the First World War. Now, this final piece, they're getting one of the huge rooms has got a really famous ceiling, and the ceiling is being completely restored because it was so dirty. And this is some of the mosaic, actually, the mosaic flooring, fantastic, and loads of it as well. But yeah, so they've had to empty the room and basically store all the artifacts separately. A lot of it you can still see, which is what we're looking at here. And there is a little video explaining how they do the conservation of the ceiling. But a lot of the exhibits are behind glass now rather than being in situ. But that did mean that we can have quite a close look at the books as well, albeit behind glass. And there really is some excellent antiquarian stuff as well, which we'll see in a moment. But yeah, some nice china and porcelain sets there. And this has all been emptied out of the room, which has got the ceiling, which is being restored at the moment. And we will have a little look at that in a second. And then eventually at the end, we'll have a look at the books I bought in Jack Ryder's, because that was the only place I actually ended up buying any books this time around. Again, this is leading up to the area where the ceiling is being restored. They've taken as many artifacts out of the room as they possibly could. Here's some of the really oldest books that they've got in the building. I mean, these are proper antiquarians. These are 16th, 17th century dated. Incredible, like leather bindings. You know, I mean, once again, the actual titles, nothing that's really going to set the world on fire. But these are the sorts of books that are, you know, hundreds of pounds a piece when they come up on for sale. And it's a very specialist market. And I don't know how big the appeal is, but You know, these are all part of the house and the house's history. So they're all kept together. But these were, once again, these would have been part of almost the that main room, the library part of the main room that's being redone at the moment. Yeah, some very nice books there indeed. And here is the ceiling. So the nice white is what's all been cleaned already, and you do see a little bit at the end. They've left one bit uncleaned, so you can just see how bad it is. So down the bottom there, that bit which is all dark and grey, that's what the entire ceiling was like. So you can imagine. And it's not quite finished, but they're almost there, which is amazing. And there's all sorts of different reliefs in there with different things on. Now, like a lot of the National Trust shops and properties, they do have a shop at the end. They've got a couple of cafes dotted around as well. I thought this shop was really well lit, nicely merchandised, and it's filled with just the sort of stuff that you would expect in a place like this, really. So yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, but it was absolutely fine. Going around the house is a little bit claustrophobic, and I said it was quite dark inside, so it was nice to get out after going around it. And we then went and had a walk around the garden before heading back up to the entrance. It's quite a walk. It's probably just under half a mile. It's easy coming down, but going back up towards the entrance is all up hills. But you can jump on a Land Rover if you want to and get a trip up. But yeah, absolutely beautiful gardens, and well worth a trip to Lanhydrock if you get the chance. Very nice indeed. Okay then, so not a great deal of finds overall for the day. However, from Jack Ryder books, I did get a few bits and pieces. So in the end, I picked up 3 of the Science Fiction Book Club. Frustratingly, when I came home, I realised that my list of books that I've got from the SF Book Club, the British one here, is incomplete. I haven't actually updated it. So I took a bit of a punt on these, and Jack had them all priced up at a £5 each, which I didn't think was too bad. Some of the other ones, I mean, that was 12 in actual fact, but yeah, he's given me these at a £5 each. Some of them he had a little bit more than that. There was a couple that were like sort of £15, and that's a bit more than I want to pay for one of these. This is the 3rd one I got. However, I believe he may well do a deal if I was to go back with my list and see which ones he's got, which is plenty. None of them with the original sort of wavy design, sadly, which are the ones which I particularly would like, because they're, obviously the earlier ones. But nice to get 3 of those off the list. Once again, even on these 3, you can see they are not uniform size. There's the Lewis Carbonet one is noticeably longer. It's just how they are, and so difficult to find these black covered ones in really nice dust wrappers. So quite a challenge there. I found one odd picador, which was that one, the Eric Newby, which he literally just gave to me, so you can have that. It's 1999, so I collect Picador pre-2000. It's a first printing, it's a travel one. It was just inside my cut-off point, which is the year 2000 on those, and it was a first, so he just gave me that one. And this one was also a £5, which I thought was probably the bargain of the day, really. It's the books inside are dated 1972. There's nothing later than that. So my estimate is it was a box set for 72/73. Got 4 lovely puffins in. The box itself isn't mint, but it's not bad. And I do have a few sort of Penguin box sets, so I was definitely going to pick this one up. And yeah, so the 4 books inside, they're all reprint editions. Although that one I actually do have the first original printing of it. But very, very nice. Generally speaking, the books, if they've been kept in box sets, generally hold out pretty well as a general rule, although these have all been read, these books. But not to take anything away from them, for a £5, I thought that was a pretty good price for probably an original owner, early 70s Puffin box set. So yeah, so there you are. So not bad at all. So I do hope you've enjoyed today's out and about video. Certainly something a little bit different. We covered many angles there. Not a lot of book finds, but a few. And definitely, if you're in Liskeard, do check out Jack Ryder books, because they've, as you can see, got quite a lot in there, and plenty to take a look at. If you've enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage book coverage, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.